Today's guest on the Paw Print Animal Rescue Podcast is Jenny Knapp.
I love hiking and I love walking. He just gets me out. That really fills my spirit.
This is Paw Print, an animal rescue community, episode 14. I'm Nancy Ree.
I'm Harold Ree.
Jenny Knapp is a close friend of mine. We met while hiking with our dogs, and today she will share her story about Togo.
When it comes down to it, most rescue stories involve beginnings and endings. What makes Togos Story so interesting is the wide range of beginnings and endings he's been a part of in Jenny's life, along with her husband Bill and sons Ben and Sam. If you want to learn more about Jenny and Togo, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/14. That's the number 14.
I work at the Akalani's Adult Education Center, and we have classes for adults, and I work with the ESL program, Adults Learning English as a Second Language. I also have two teenage boys. We had just Mackinac for a long time because, it was at that time that we had the two babies and just got to be very busy. So we just had Mackie for a long time. As Mackie got to be older and the kids got older, we decided it was time to get another dog. I was working a little bit at the boys' elementary school. I did a little bit of tutoring. We were living in Colorado Springs at the time. Bill and the boys would go to the local dog shelters and, just keep checking to see if there was a dog out there that was the right dog for us. And so they did that for about 2 or 3 weeks. That was about 12 years ago, I guess. We had decided that not to go back to the shelters anymore. And I can recall a conversation with Bill. When the time is right and the dog is right, we'll find it. And 2 weeks later, my girlfriend called me. She was teaching high school in Pueblo, and she said, I found a dog. He was walking the halls in the high school. And she said, we can't keep it because we already have, I think they had 2 or 3 dogs at home. And she said, he's really, really cute. And he was a little puppy. And I said, well, why don't you send me a picture? I was a little reluctant, because it was a commitment that we had talked about getting a dog. And so suddenly it was becoming very real. And I was thinking, oh no, can we really do another puppy? And so she sends this picture of this puppy that was impossibly cute. And she said, I'll drive him up and I'll bring his little blanket and I'll even bring some toys and some food. And if you don't want to keep him, that's okay. I'll take him back. As soon as we saw the picture and she drove up with him, we knew we had to keep him. And that's Togo. And that's the dog that I met Nancy through. Mm-hmm. He's 12 now. Wow. And he was our first rescue dog that we got. We still had our older dog Mackinac when Togo was a puppy. She was quite old when we got him, and he was quite a rambunctious puppy and was really, really playful. And it was hard on our older dog because she just didn't have the stability, and she would give us that eye at night and look at us and say, why at this age did you do this to me? Because she and our other dog, Otis, were just thick as thieves. I mean, they curled up together at night and they hugged each other and slept next to each other. They were the bestest of friends. But this young dog was a lot more than what she wanted in her life at that time. I think we had Togo for about a year, and then Mackie passed away. And Togo was just devastated, completely devastated. I have never in my life seen an animal mourn like he did. After she died, she got really sick and we had to take her into the vet. She had to spend the night there and they put her down. All her internal organs were just kind of shutting down. She was 11 and she wasn't terribly old, but she was older and it was her time to go. And anyway, we brought her back home because we have some friends that had some property in Colorado in the mountains where we've buried all of our dogs that we've had. She came back home and we had her in the car. And so Togo, had the chance to be with her and come up with us when we buried her. And when we got home, he would just walk just around the house. He wouldn't eat. He'd go over to the food bowls, and then he'd look at us, and he'd look around the corner, and it was really, really touching and really sad and really sweet. I learned a whole new appreciation for animal emotions and how powerful they are and how they really feel things that we didn't anticipate. He really changed after that, because prior to that, he was very youthful and really playful, and we got him when he was about 12 weeks old. So I guess he was a little over a year when she died. And the funny thing was that first week after she had passed away, his whole affect changed from this really youthful, playful puppy to a dog that had responsibility, because he was the older dog now in the household. And he had to take on this kind of leader of the pack. That was really fascinating to watch that.
You and Togo have been through some tough times.
So my oldest son is 19 and Sam is 17. The boys really grew up with this dog. They were young when we got him. They were old enough to remember when he was a puppy, like now that they're 17 and 19, they fully remember when we got him. And so just, their whole growing up period, which, as you know, just raising kids in general, you just go through a lot. And the two boys, my father became very ill with dementia. My sister was very ill with cancer. And my mother got very ill because she was caretaking my father. So there was a lot of really difficult times, with young children and aging parents, and my sister ill. And he is just a real emotional support for me, I guess, because, in all the transitions of family illness and children growing and our move, he's just a affectionate, loving dog that, like most dogs are, you walk in the house and no matter how rotten your day's been, no matter how hard things are, no matter how desperate you're feeling about, dealing with really difficult things, they love to see you. And he loved to see me. I love hiking and I love walking, and he just gets me out. He gets me out in nature and on the trails, and that really fills my spirit when I'm going through really tough times. He was a really, really difficult puppy. He was a really unmanageable puppy because he was this kind of street savvy leader of the pack, really dominant dog. And when we first got him, he would just tear up everything in the house. He chewed up chairs, those folding chairs that you take to like football games, and he ate a couple of those. And when the kids were having breakfast, he would jump up on the table and he'd steal their breakfast right as they were sitting there to eat it. He used to eat their stuffed animals. He chewed all the noses and the eyes off of the stuffed animals. So we set up a little animal hospital, and the kids would be really upset. Like, oh my gosh, my little bear. And so we'd put it in the animal hospital and I'd stitch up the noses and sew on buttons for the eyes. And so anyway, he was very unruly and he played rough. One of our favorite stories is when the boys were outside playing in the backyard, Ben was out there with Togo and it was snowy out in the back, and Togo came and he knocked Ben down and grabbed him by the collar of the coat and just drug him around the yard like a little toy. And the one thing, it sounds really horrible, but he was always a gentle dog, just a rough, tumble, playful dog, so he never hurt them, ever, ever, ever. Like, we knew that he would never do a thing to hurt them. He was just big and rough. And I would call Bill and I'd say, Bill, we have to get rid of this dog. I can't do it anymore. And he'd say, okay, all right. He'd say, well, when we get home, we'll just take him into the pound. And I go, no, we can't do that. We can't get rid of him. So we took him to animal obedience, and he was really motivated by food because he was a stray puppy, and he did really well in obedience school. So we kept on with the training. He got his Canine Good Citizen little certificate. It's not a therapy dog, but it's, they get a little certificate, and he had to pass a pretty rigorous test. They had to tolerate strangers coming up and brushing them, and they had to hit our sit in a row with all the other dogs going through the test, and they had to stay, and they couldn't move, they couldn't deviate, and they had to come when you call them. So he did great, and I was, proud mama that this unruly puppy had this good citizen. Fast forward to the time where my father became ill, and my sister was ill, and my mother was ill. About the same time that my father went into nursing care on the East Coast, we had a neighbor down the street. He was elderly and he was living by himself, and he became unable to stay in his home. Togo and I would go visit every week because it was kind of my way of being able to kind of vicariously go see my father, who was going through a similar thing as my neighbor, Monroe. And that was really special, because the nursing home I told him that he was a good citizen, just brought the little certificate, and they said, sure, he can come on in. And so we would go every week, and he would poke his nose in all the residents' rooms, and then we would go visit my friend Monroe, and we'd spend, an hour or two every Thursday afternoon. We did that until we moved. That was probably 2 years we did that. And I can remember one afternoon in the beginning when we went to go visit, I gave Monroe the leash. He was in a wheelchair, and we would always go outside if the weather was nice. And so I let him, he asked, he goes, can I walk Togo? I said, sure. And I gave him the leash, and Togo took off, just trotting down the hall, and pulled Monroe in the wheelchair. And he was just waving at everybody going by, and Togo's tail was wagging, and it was just the sweetest.
How many pounds is Togo, roughly?
He's 85.
Okay.
85 pounds now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a really, really special thing for me on many levels because, I had this really sweet dog that was giving so much to this man who was in a similar circumstance as my father. And so that whole experience just really helped me come to grasp with the fact that my father was in a nursing home. That was a time too where my husband got really ill, and he had a virus that landed him in the hospital for a week, and it was really scary. And they finally figured out, what it was, and were able to treat it. But at that time, we were able to bring Togo into the hospital. And he was sharing a room with another person, and the other person also, their family and their dog came in. And I remember one afternoon thinking how unbelievably healing it was to be in this relatively small hospital room with 2 patients, 2 dogs, and probably 6 other family members. Mm-hmm. And the hospital was so, they welcomed. They didn't even ask to see any certificates or anything. They just, when I asked, can we bring our dog in? They embraced it, and they said yes, because we believe that dogs, they're part of your family. Right. And patients will heal when they're surrounded by their family and their love. It was really something to just trot in with this big, huge dog in the hospital. And that was healing on so many levels for all of us, for the kids, for my husband, for me. Yeah. It was really remarkable. When you get a dog, you get a dog for their duration. Mm-hmm. And their life is shorter than ours, but people sometimes with the best of intention and all the right intention, taking some dogs that circumstances don't allow them to commit and carry through. Before you adopt a dog, do you have the resources to care for that dog? Because I think that's really, really important. You have to realize that, they need food, they need medical care, they need physical care, they need attention, they need the companionship. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get when you adopt a dog. Even if they're cute little puppies, you don't know what their personality is until you spend time with them. The positive things far outweigh the negatives in my book, because if somebody wants to adopt a dog, they've obviously thought about it and they're looking for that companionship in their life, and there's no you can't measure that. It's just, it's huge.
Right.
What dogs offer us are just beyond any sort of measure. I mean, look at Nancy sitting over there with 3 dogs piled around her. Just adorable.
They keep you warm. Natural heater.
Natural heaters.
Yeah.
When I die, Togo, I want to come back as you, because you have one of the best lives of anybody.
A couple of our interview guests have said, I want to be my pet.
I want to be my dog because he's this great dog. Everybody loves him. He's just this gentle soul. He is very content. He gets out. He's got a great life.
You just heard a rendition of Bob Dylan's song, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, performed by Jenny Knapp's son, Sam, and Holden Ganch. We want to say thank you to Jenny for sharing her story, and of course, to Togo. If you want to learn more about Jenny and Togo, go to our show notes at thisispawprint.com/14. If you want to learn more about me, that's Harold, and Nancy, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Look for This Is Paw Print, one word. If you want to listen to more episodes, you can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. Go to thisispawprint.com/iTunes or /SoundCloud or /Stitcher. We want to say thank you to you, our listeners, for inspiring us with your stories and for sharing a positive message of love and peace by saving an animal. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Paw Print.
Paw Print is a production of EVER Education.
You can't handle the truth.
Woohoo!